Okay, hello. Today I'm going to be discussing computer things because a lot of my friends and a lot of people around my local area were asking lots of computer questions. And I was like, I'm doing a lot of repeating. I'm repeating myself a lot. So I thought I might as well just make a video, compile all my thoughts and feelings on this particular subject, and also to test out OBS and do some OBS things, and see and just basically learn how to provide a live broadcast or something like that, which would be quite fun in the future. Okay, so today I'm just going to be having a very basic and surface level discussion on using Linux in the modern day world in the context of work, right? So I'm not worried about gaming, I'm not worried about specific niches. It's just, can my granny access her email? Can I get on the internet, use YouTube? That's all I'm talking about today. But I will be discussing a little bit about Linux and the core things. If you want to skip ahead and just look at the actual computers that I've got prepared later, feel free. I'll put a time code somewhere. But I've also prepared a little presentation to explain like the differences between Mac, Windows, and Linux on a very surface level. I'm not going into detail at all in this video. Cool. Excellent stuff. Let's begin. So, and I'm going to try and do this in one take as well, which should be fun. Excellent. So, here I have a lovely little presentation. Windows plus Mac versus Linux, a quick introduction. So, when people think of computers in general, they usually think of it just like one whole thing. Right, so you push a button and things happen, and then I get YouTube. That's how, in the modern day, a lot of people think about it. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on how that actually works. So the first thing we'll discuss is the different layers. Again, there's more to it than this. Very surface level discussion here. So Linux is a kernel. What is a kernel? Well, the kernel, I'll start from the beginning. The hardware is the physical things you can touch, right? So your mouse, your keyboard, your computer, your actual screen, laptop, that sort of stuff is the things you can touch. That is the hardware. Okay? And obviously inside the computer, you got things like the CPU, which is the brain, memory, which is like memory, and then you got devices. I think this is more like headphones, keyboard, keys, keyboard, mouse, that sort of thing. Cool. Now, the hardware works in a way which is really, really complicated, trying to translate zeros and ones into something usable, right? And also, how does I want to stick this to very surface level. Basically, the actual hardware itself is very complex. So, the kernel is the thing that interacts with the hardware itself. The hardware is just doing things all the time. Do. The kernel controls how the hardware is used. Okay? So what goes into the CPU? What goes into the memory? All of this stuff, this is all done through the kernel. Okay? So it's a very, very core part of a computer. Okay? As users, we mainly remain in the application layer. This is your YouTube. This is your browser. This is your games, your video games, your work documents. Everything that you use is in the applications. You very rarely touch the kernel directly. Okay? Even if you use this thing called terminal, you're not really interacting with the kernel itself. We usually stay in the application layer, right? Now, with a lot of other like computer stuff, they kind of double up on the actual companies themselves. They actually take care of multiple layers, and we'll discuss that now. So basically, here I'm going to mention some companies by name. Obviously, much love to all of them. I'm also not sponsored. I don't care. These are just examples, okay? So hardware-wise, I just brought myself a lovely framework. So again, not sponsored, but I've got it just here. And I've had a great bit of fun with this one. And I've also heard very good things with Lenovo. The reason I'm mentioning this is because some hardware support some software better than others. Okay, but these two I found to be really, really good with both Linux and Windows. Mac is different. So, how does Windows take care of things? Well, Windows, this is where a lot of confusion comes with the different layers. When people buy a laptop, they just assume it's a Windows laptop. Well, it's actually like the actual laptop hardware itself is a separate company, like HP, like Lenovo, like Framework. That's just the hardware. And then on that hardware, you install Windows. Okay? And Microsoft takes care of the kernel as well as the applications. Right? So essentially, they interact with the hardware directly. And then on top of that kernel is the actual Windows OS. This application layer is the Windows 10, Windows 11, what you actually interact with. Okay, so there's the difference there. So you've got choices between different hardware, and each hardware can support Windows. Cool. Now, Apple does things a lot different. This is very unique, where they actually have the hardware as well as the kernel, as well as the applications, right? So if you buy a Mac, like a Mac Airbook or like a notebook or Mac Air or something like this, you have to use Mac OS on it. You can say if this is correct or incorrect way of doing things. That's a discussion for you guys. I'm not getting into it now. Be here forever. But yeah, so basically Apple takes care of the actual Apple Silicon, like the M1, M2 chip. They also take care of the kernel, and they also take care of the application layer itself. Apple does everything on it. So everything's kind of uniform as long as you only use Apple products. Which, again, not getting into that argument. So, Linux does things very different. Different from these two. Okay? Now, when people describe Linux, they kind of use it in the context similar to Windows, where it's the kernel and the application layer. But what actually happens is the Linux itself is just the kernel, right? It's only taking care of the interaction between software and hardware. That's all it does. And it's like a little translation bubble. So that's what the kernel is. When people say Linux, it's the kernel. There's this other one called GNU, this other bunch of guys called GNU. They deal with the application layer. Okay, everything you interact with on the actual computer is done through GNU, then it's translated by Linux, and then that's how you interact with the hardware. Okay, so when people say Linux, what you should actually be saying is GNU/Linux, but it's up to you how much you care about that, because, you know, a lot of people just say Linux for both of these, but it's actually GNU/Linux. Cool? Excellent stuff. Let's move on. So, when people start learning about Linux, they instantly get overwhelmed by these things called flavors. Now, that's understandable. Like this picture on the left here, like each one of these little lines is a separate operating system, right? You know, like with Windows, you get Microsoft 10, 11, XP, 7, blah, 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 blah. That's more like the new one comes out. With Linux, they're like, it's just a different configuration of the Linux kernel and the GNU system. Yeah, I understand why a lot of people get kind of frustrated with this part. So my recommendation, when you're getting into Linux, don't worry too much about the flavor, okay? Just pick something that works to start out with. You can always swap later, okay? So I'm not gonna dwell too much on the actual flavor, because when you're actually using the computer itself, it doesn't actually matter what flavor you use, as long as it's something that's working. Okay, I use Arch, for example. I do not recommend Arch for new people, but Arch has this other flavor called Manjaro, which we'll be looking at later. Again, don't worry too much about it. The flavor, all it is the actual configuration of the operating system, right? So for example, maybe you open up a computer and instead of this wallpaper, it's that wallpaper. It's things like that. There's more to it, but just think of it like that. Like, okay, the button's over here instead of over here. Maybe that menu looks like this, or that menu looks like that. That's all the different flavors are. Okay, in a very in a very surface level. It also controls how you get more software, but again, don't worry too much about it. The thing that I would recommend you focus on is the actual desktop environment. So this is going to be actually a really, really new concept to a lot of people. So essentially what the desktop environment is what you actually interact with, is the first thing you interact with on the applications, right? So for example, Microsoft creates the desktop environment for Windows 11. Now, Windows 11 is the actual operating system, but the thing you see on your screen, like the start menu being in the middle, icons being on the left side, the clock being down the right side and the bottom right side, that's all the desktop environment. Okay? Mac has their own desktop environment called Mac OS, for Mac OS, where the clock is at the top right side and the little Apple logo is at the top left side, and then all your applications is down the bottom. Okay? That's kind of how it works. But Microsoft only has one choice for desktop environment. Apple only has one choice for desktop environment. When you see Windows 11, that's Windows 11. Linux, slightly different. And again, this is where some of the confusion comes in, because Linux has multiple options when it comes to the actual desktop environment itself. Okay, so here's just a few examples. Here I've got XFCE, which is a very lightweight one. KDE is very similar to Windows because it has like the start menu at the bottom left, and then you got GNOME, or GNOME is how it's actually pronounced. GNOME. It's got applications down the left side. It's got stuff in the middle. It's got the menus at the top right. That's how it's happened. So basically, when you're in summation, when you're using Windows, you're using Microsoft products until the hardware, then it changes. Apple, it's Apple all the way down. With Linux, or GNU/Linux, you've got to make different decisions based on your specific requirements to what you need, and then you can make choices and change things up. If one thing breaks, you can just use another thing. That's what's really cool about Linux in general. But when you're first getting into Linux and you just want to open up your emails, I just recommend picking a desktop environment rather than a flavor. Okay, that's what I suggest. Cool. Excellent stuff. So the things we'll be looking at today. So obviously we'll be looking at GNU Linux, a specific flavor. Now, when it comes to the actual flavor, that's just a configuration. It doesn't actually matter which one you use. Everyone's got their own opinions. Today, as an easy introduction, I just picked Manjaro for no specific reason. It's just one that I know. And on that operating system, on that flavor, I'm going to look at the KDE desktop environment, the GNOME desktop environment, and the XFCE desktop environment. Okay? But before that, I'm actually going to have a look at Windows as well. So I'm going to see you in a second, I guess. Bye-bye. Okay, I guess this is the part 2 of my video series, talking about Linux and stuff like that. So essentially, this video is just going to be just demonstrating Windows. Just like have like a control point of like, okay, this is what I expect and this is what I want to do on my actual computer. Okay, therefore we can compare that to something else in Linux, and basically just to have that idea of like, oh, I can do the same things on both. Okay, so here we go. Here I've got an example of Windows 10. This is just simply me freshly installing it. I've changed nothing. I've done nothing. Okay, so essentially when you're first using Windows, obviously you got the start button in the bottom left, and maybe I want to create a document, right? So what I would do, I would use the menu. I would go down to somewhere. Can I actually use Word? Cool. Now it opens up a browser, does this thing. You have to sign into an account. No, I don't want to do that. Start without using the data. Stop it. Okay. Continue without using the data. Correct. Confirm start browsing. Cool. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Cool. And do I have... Nope. I'm doing KaiPilot now. Next. Stop it. Okay, again, this is a fresh install, so I haven't done this yet. So let's try again. Microsoft Word. Let's go. No, you have to have an account. Fantastic. So what we're going to do instead is go on to Google Docs. And you also need an account for that. Okay, cool. So you need an account for everything, I guess. Cool. So let me just double check to see if Microsoft... Because I haven't used this in a while. Microsoft Word. Okay, the search brings up the browser as well. Fascinating. And you have to download it separate. So it doesn't come as standard. Okay. So let's download that. Sign up for free. I need an account. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. So at standard, you cannot make a document. That's what I'm seeing here. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Cool. So we won't do that then. Okay. So what about your actual email? Well, you can go into your browser. You can type in your actual email thing here. And then you would sign into your account. Obviously, this one needs an account. So go into your account, check your email. You can do that. Also, you can go over here. You can go to youtube.com. And yeah, then you can start watching some YouTube videos. Start watching YouTube videos to help build your free thing. Am I actually going to see it? Try searching to get started. Fantastic. So music. I haven't used Windows in so long. Okay. Then you can watch your YouTube. Fine. Great. You can do it. Excellent stuff. So that's some stuff you can do in Windows. So you can go to the settings and maybe you want to find something. Maybe I want to find sound. Input devices like that. You can use... Fantastic. So you got your settings there and everything like that. That's essentially the Windows experience. Right. What's really funny is because I have this is a free version, so you can't actually personalize anything, which is always... So I can't change the size. I can't change the resolution. I can't do anything like that. Fantastic. So everything's going to look huge all the time unless you buy it. Fantastic. Now, if you want to buy it, perfectly fine. Not a problem. But what are you getting? Okay, so now shut down that one. Let's hop over to Windows 11. Here we go. So here's Windows 11. I'm going to do the exact same thing where I'm going to try and create a document. Word. WordPad. That's not a document. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so you got this you got this very simple one where it's like yeah, you can do bold and stuff like that. Yep, you can do that. So yeah, you can create a document in WordPad, but I think Microsoft don't save. I think Microsoft Office is the one that people often use, right? So Microsoft Word processor search. You have to go for the browser. Fascinating. Okay, cool. So you need an account. You need to go through the browser. It does not, like, Microsoft Office does not come as standard. Start. I can't close it. Okay. Okay, you have to go through that and then you can close it. Fascinating. Okay, cool. So now let's let's check the settings. Okay. So sign into your Microsoft account. Of course you do. Windows Update. That takes a while. Okay, it's all here. Is it though? Is it all here? Okay. So then you can personalize. Once you've bought the license, you can personalize. Fantastic. Cool. I can't change any of that. Everything's going to be huge. Fascinating. Okay. So then settings. Let's have a quick look. You need to activate your PC here. Fantastic. Oh, I just looked at that. Yeah. So taskbar, can I change anything? Copilot. Yeah, you can change some settings. You can get rid of the weather. You can't uninstall it though. This is still here the entire time. So it's always there. You cannot uninstall it as far as I know. I actually tried earlier. Well, I know, but I tried to uninstall Edge, should I say, but you can't do that. Awesome. So yeah, then you go on to Edge itself, and then you can click in your Gmail like that. Obviously, sign into your account, access your email. You can do that just fine. And then if you want to go onto YouTube, you can do that as well. Try searching music. Spelling is atrocious, and then you can see some music. Fantastic. So, yeah, so that is Microsoft 11. Those are just a couple of simple things that you would do in your day-to-day life. Now, next time I'm going to be talking about the actual Linux distros, and I'll show you that as well. Cool. So I'll see you in a second. Bye-bye. Okay, so hello. We discussed Linux. We also discussed Windows, and I had to play around with Windows. I haven't used it in so long. It's changed so much. Now, let's have a look at the actual Linux itself. So, as I said earlier, we're going to use the Manjaro flavor with different desktop environments. So, it's Manjaro, but the actual desktop environment is different, which is what I would suggest you do if you first get into Linux. Okay, just pick a nice stable flavor. Don't read too much into the flavors unless you really want to get into Linux. It's the desktop environment you want to look at, because that provides the actual user experience. Okay, so first of all, we are going to look at one of my favorites, which is called XFCE. And when you first log in, you get this little nice readme, a little bit of information about the actual OS itself. You can actually turn this off where it doesn't activate on start, but here we are. This is Linux Manjaro XFCE, or GNU/Linux Manjaro XFCE. Okay, so down the bottom left, similar to Windows, you have this little button here, and here is where all your settings will be, like different applications for different sort of things, including your web browser. But in the Windows one, we tried to make a document, and you had to sign into an account for a document. Oh boy. Here, I can literally just go into Office, this section here, and then LibreOffice is like a whole suite of different applications, like your Word, your presentations, your Excel spreadsheets. That's all here. So we are going to open up LibreOffice Writer, which is basically your Microsoft Word. And hey, look at that. It showed up and I didn't need to sign in. Cool. So here you've got your very basic functionalities of like, hello, this is a document. Okay. Whenever there's an update and you get something, again, this is a fresh install, so you can actually see what's new and stuff like that. You can open file, you can save as, you can use different documents type, like for example, ODT, which is the open source document format, as well as docx. So if your work uses Microsoft Word, you can save in Microsoft Word format, and it works exactly the same way. Cool. So that is opening the document. Then if I want to close, I can just close, don't save. Cool. Done. Okay. Now, if I want to open up a website, I would click this button. I would go to web browser, and it will open up whatever web browser is currently installed. In this case, it is Firefox. You can change that. You can uninstall the default browser. Okay, if you want to use something else. Let's have a look at here. Let's go to gmail.com. Excellent stuff, and then it will eventually load. There we go. Cool. So, yep, then you sign in to your account, and you can open up your email. You can then press tab. You can go YouTube. like that. And then you can go and search YouTube, try doing that, music, cool. And then you can just listen to some. Okay, a little too loud there. Fantastic. So yeah, so that is XFCE. A couple of other features is you can actually have multiple workstations. Now I think Windows 10 and 11 does have this as well. Windows 11 I think has this, where if you open up something and then you go over here, and then you can open up another thing over here, and then you can flick between them. You can have like virtual workstations. So if you've got like a bunch of stuff here and then you want to switch between two things, you can absolutely do that. And you can actually, I think, move it from here over to here. Yeah, and now you have two on there, which is pretty cool. Okay, so that is XFCE. Okay, just a real quick rundown. There's lots of other features, but for now, let's just go over here, shut down, or you can log out, shut down, and then you're shutting down. Fantastic, nice and clean. So now this one is KDE, which is KDE Plasma. Again, Linux, Manjaro, and then the KDE desktop environment. Okay, so this one is slightly different, where I set it up where you got to log in. You got that same window, which you can still do here. You can go down the bottom left, you click this little start menu, and as you can see, it looks a little bit different, but there's a lot of uniformity with the configuration, and that's Manjaro. Like all the software being in here, like LibreOffice Writer, it's all here because Manjaro takes care of it. Okay, they configure it where certain things are on there. Okay, so show on startup. Okay, release notes. Hello, my old friend. Nope. There we go. Fantastic. There's hello, my old friend. Let's increase the font. Excellent. You can create a document. You can go to file, export as, save as, and again, you can use the docx Windows format, so you can still have some interactability there. Not a problem. You can also do a bunch of stuff. Yeah, like you can install a computer and then instantly create a document. It's crazy. Okay, so then you close it. Oh, you close it again. Don't save. Fantastic. So then down here, they've actually got the actual widgets already here. There's nothing at standard. There's nothing here, but you kind of go down here for it. So you can open up the browser, which is Firefox, and then you can go to let's go gmail.com. Fantastic. Yep. Then you log into your email. You can do your email. Then if you click tab, you can go to YouTube, and you can click YouTube. Cool. You got it. I'm going to click music. There we go. Cool. And then you can just click music again. So there is a slight performance hit because I'm using virtual machines, and I've given these ones less. Oh, an advert popped up. That's the first. Cool. So yeah, so that's KDE. Now, obviously, I've only given this one 8 gigs of RAM, so that's where the slight performance hit comes in. I think I gave Windows a little bit more because of the minimum requirements, but these ones are running under less resources. Like if you've got over 8 gigs, this would work fine. And yeah, and then I think this one actually has the thing where you can actually do the multiple. Yeah, you do. So you can have your files over there, and then you can switch between them and have the virtual things as well, which is pretty cool. So quite similar to XFCE. This one's got more features. This is a little bit more heavier than XFCE, but it's still awesome, and you can still do everything you need to do that you can do on Windows. So pretty cool. Shut down. Fantastic. Cool. So the next one, we're going to use GNOME or GNOME. Okay. So again, example PC. type in my incredibly sophisticated password, which should be the same as, there we go, as the username. Okay, then again, this thing happens. You can click start. You can turn it off. And this one looks a lot differently because if you click up here, you can actually switch between the virtual desktops, similar to what we did earlier. You can also search the local file. So for example, if I go Libre Writer, there it is right there. Cool. Rather than opening up Bing every time. Okay, so let's just go straight from the start. So here, this button here is essentially your start button, where you show the apps, and then I think it's over here, Office. Then you scroll down to Office, you go Libre Office Writer, you can click that. It opens up. Cool. And again, this one looks a lot differently. Again, it's the actual configuration of the Manjaro that's slightly different on each one. This one's got the black on the sides. The other one's got white on the sides. You can change that inside Linux. You got a lot of customization options. This is just the default. Okay. So if you don't like the look of it, you can change it. Cool. So then, if I go further here, hello, this is GNOME. And then you can go File, you can Save As. Yep, and then again, you've got all your document types and stuff like that. And you can save it however you want. I'll cancel it for now. Close. Whoop, there we go. Don't save. Fantastic. Cool. And then again, Firefox tends to come default with a lot of different Linux stuff. Skip the step. But again, you can change that. If you don't like Firefox, you can uninstall Firefox and you can install something else. I personally use Brave. It's completely up to you. Cool. Then you go into here, you go gmail.com. Same thing again. You log in, you look at your emails. And then over here, you go youtube.com. You can go there. Dark mode is the default on GNOME. And then you can just look into music. And then, yeah, morning jazz. I think I forgot the driver on my laptop to have good music. That's fine. So, yeah. And then you can go up here. I think it's at the top right. Yeah, you can actually turn off the dark style here. Does that work on Libre? Yeah, okay, cool. It's that easy. You can actually just go up there, go dark style, like that, and then it, ooh, fancy. Okay, so yeah, and then you go up here, power off, done, fantastic. That is the end of the Linux demonstrations. Now, obviously, like, there's a lot more you can do with computers in general. This is just an idea of, like, do they do the basics? And I hope that it's kind of suggested that you can do the basics. In fact, I would argue that Windows can't do the basics. I was not able to open up a document and edit a document unless I sign into multiple accounts, which is strange. Also, if I use the search on Linux, it opens up Linux things, like stuff that's local. It doesn't go to Bing. There's like a bunch of different reasons why I prefer Linux over Windows. And also, one thing I will mention, I'll probably edit it on the screen. I gave specific requirements to each individual one. I think I gave everything 8 gigs of RAM, and then different storage amounts depending on the requirements. Based on what I show up on the screen, you can actually see that a fresh install without adding anything new, Windows takes up way more resources, whether it's RAM or actual storage, than Linux, because of all the extra bloatware and stuff. Now, if you enjoy that stuff, like for example the Copilot and the Cortana and things like that, then the bloat is worth it, or the extra storage is worth it. But when it comes to Windows 11 and it requires 50 gigabytes to even begin installing, and a fresh install is like 30 gigs, that's sizably different from all the others. All the others I show. So it depends what you, and don't forget, you are paying for Windows as well. So you are paying for Copilot and stuff like that. So if you use it, cool, money worthwhile. If you're not using it, is a free alternative good for you? Who knows? Only you can decide. Anyway, that is me done for today. This is like just a quick thing. Let me know what you think. Yeah, cool. Bye.